said you were the best in the Parsec.
Welcome to
Parsec Passion, a podcast about Disney Plus's The Mandalorian, the first, currently the only live-action Star Wars show. My name's Boba, and with me, as always, this isn't a spice stream, it's Catfish. Catfish, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing deliciously, Bubba. The only thing that I'm sad about is, by my very extensive math calculations, we're now 3/4 of the way through season 2. Oh, no.
Nobody told me there'd be math. Oh, no is right. Listeners, we are breaking down Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 6, also known as Chapter 14, The Tragedy, a.k.a. The Empire Strikes Back, a.k.a. Return of the King, a.k.a. John Wick. Catfish, let's get right to it at the top. What is your rating out of 10 for this episode, Chapter 14, The Tragedy?
Okay, well, I was going to put it on the triple B scale.
Oh, triple B, of course. What?
Yeah, badass bashing Boba.
Oh, he sure was.
But I had to go with 9 octuple Z's out of 10.
We don't have time to do 9 octuple Z's, so let me give my ranking. No, sorry. Octuple Z's, this might be a new high. How in the world do you have octuple Z's? What do you mean? What ranking is this?
Well, this is when you do some meditation and you're tired afterward, and I refer to those as Zen Z's. I loved the action in this. Boba was, my God, such a badass. It was really cool. I feel like the stakes really changed.
Oh, yes.
Something that you predicted would happen at the end of the season, and that is Grogu being taken by Moff Gideon, happened here. We lost the Razor Crest. Boba Fett has a knee cannon. That's fascinating. And I think most importantly, something that has put me back into the positive feelings about Grogu, he's a fan of the Three Stooges. He's a great director. Okay, guys, you do this. All right, now look, move. All right, never mind. Let me just. I'll show you. I'm surprised he didn't have them poke each other in the eye. It was delicious. What about you, Bubba? What was your rating?
Well, Catfish, you're 9 out of 10. That is very, very high. I'm gonna have to rate this on the double S scale.
Oh, the double S scale.
Sophomore slump.
Uh-oh.
There isn't a sophomore slump. I'm rating this 9 double E's out of 10.
Double E's?
Earned Emmys. When season 1 got that Emmy nomination for Best Show of the Year, I thought, okay, this is just like a participation trophy. Mando, you did some really good things. After this episode and after this season, this does deserve to be in the Best Show Emmy category. It's earned it. I got to give a tip of my cap to Double R.
Double R?
Robert Rodriguez, the director of this episode. Man, this thing was great. I cannot express my schoolboy glee when suddenly Boba Fett's ship, the Slave One, is doing a flyby when your buddy Grogu is in his octuple Z's. I mean, this was awesome. I loved it. I do have to ask you, though, Catfish. This chapter is titled The Tragedy. What is the tragedy? Is it what happened to the Razor Crest? Is it that Grogu didn't have more times to kill stormtroopers? Or is it that Boba Fett has gained some weight? One of the listeners to the podcast wrote to us and said, boy, I didn't know the menu inside the Sarlacc's stomach was pizza and beer. Poor Boba. What's the tragedy?
I think the real tragedy is that the Mandalorian let the insurance coverage run out on the Razor Crest because he was spending all his money on fuel without getting any money for any of these tasks he was doing. That's it. He's just SOL, as we say in the Empire. Wow. They were all amazingly, except for the Boba Fett part where apparently you can roam the galaxy and still eat well.
So not nice.
I'm thinking that the tragedy, honestly, I always like to think about it from, not just the hero's point of view, but sometimes think about it from the antagonist's point of view. Mm-hmm. And I just have to say, is Stormtrooper the shittiest job in the universe?
Oh, my God.
It's got to be. Even when you're inside the ship and nobody can see you, you have to wear those. I mean, it's not like you've taken a creed. It's just a damn job. And you got to wear those hot helmets inside. And apparently, the slightest bit of force on any part of your stormtrooper armor immediately immobilizes you, if not kills you.
How about this, Catfish? Oh, okay, guys, let's load up the dropship. Let's go. Excuse me, Captain. Aren't there some dark troopers over there? Maybe we should send them down first. No, you guys. No, sure, officer. I really think that those dark troopers might do a bit better job. No, you guys go. Let's go. 2 dropships. Let's go. You know what, guys? I'm just going to stay out here. I've got a duty just to watch this little baby over here. I'll be fine.
Yeah, they all ended up as what I like to call double F.
Double F?
Yeah, fet fodder.
Oh, man, they were really effed. They were double effed for sure.
There was some cool stuff in there in that, usually, again, we see them shot in the elbow and then immediately they're dead. But I'm trying to remember the last time I saw them actually get like a helmet get crushed by an attack or something. That was really cool.
It was really cool. I believed the armorer, the woman who shaped all that Beskar in Season 1, I believe she took her wrench and smashed a helmet, but I'm not sure. Now, we did get this from Wikipedia, that Stormtrooper armor is known to partially deflect or disperse energy from low, medium, and high energy blaster bolts. Though the wearer may be incapacitated, survival would allow the trooper to receive advanced medical treatment that could return him to service. So, okay, maybe all these guys are just one Fennec Shan abdomen surgery away from being back alive.
Sure. As long as they weren't abandoned on the planet.
I'm sure Moff Gideon will come back. Guys, just lay here.
At some point, I would think that somebody who's in charge of the Empire's military would go, look, we got 2 choices. We can continue to build the Stormtroopers' armor out of essentially cardboard, and then we have to keep going through Stormtroopers and build more, or we could build it a little bit better and we wouldn't go through so many Stormtroopers.
What costs less?
I mean,
what's the level of effort on this? What's our return on investment? Come on.
Yeah. I guess it all depends on how much they recompense the family for any Stormtrooper deaths.
Listeners, we were really high on this episode, Chapter 14, The Tragedy. We didn't give it tragic reviews. How about you? Let us know. Write to us on social media at PHQ. That's the word double, the single letter P for podcast, HQ for headquarters. At PHQ on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.com/PHQ. YouTube comments, we love them. We are going to get, much later in this podcast, we're going to get to some people who really disagreed with our ratings last week for Chapter 13, The Jedi, and we love people who have different opinions than ours, and we love to be promoted straight. If somehow you are brand new to the Parsec Passion podcast here, just to give you a rundown, we're going to go over some news in Mandalorian land, then we're going to discuss the episode in depth, then we're going to get to your feedback. We're going to have a musical breakdown from a music expert, Double M, Matt Murdick. Then we're going to play some of our games, our Twidorable moments, but now we're calling Grogorable moments of the episode.
It's so hard to say.
Exactly.
Grogurable?
We'll see. We're going to have our Mandalicious line. We're going to have our Bounty Hunter Guild battle. Who wins the puck? A battle between Catfish and I over some Star Wars legends and lore. And then we're going to end up the episode with, hey, we are OG original Star Wars fans. We're going to hear from the latest generation, from Nephew Paul, his take. This is a packed podcast, Double P podcast. Catfish, are you ready to get into this?
I thought we already got into it.
Okay.
I'm ready to continue being in it.
Hell yeah. Just before we get into it, I mentioned our social media handles, and if you're somehow new to us or you haven't done it yet, you still have time to enter our Season 2 contest. That's where you send us a screenshot that prove you have subscribed to the Parsec Passion podcast. You'll be eligible to win a bunch of great prizes, so many prizes I can't even mention them. There's one in particular that we always mention. That's our 10-inch, our super grand prize, a 10-inch Funko Pop figure of Mando and the child. Not Grogu yet, but the child. That is completely awesome. We've got other great prizes. A prize I haven't mentioned that I want to throw out there. If anybody really loves The Phantom Menace, maybe you've been to a sporting event and gotten a program, a little magazine of the event at a sporting event. In the old days, they used to have movie programs as well. ex-Lady Bubba was working at Fox subsidiary when The Phantom Menace came out. So I have a program for The Phantom Menace that I'll be giving away. So if anybody loves The Phantom Menace and wants a program, once again, write to us and let us know.
I mean, that is not only a great prize, but honestly, I want you to think about how much pain Bubba went through just to get that prize for you.
Hey, Catfish, in other news we want to tell our listeners about, we have a very famous Double L loyal listener at Patman23 on Twitter. You should be following at Patman23 on Twitter. If you don't, he appeared on a different Mandalorian show in the flesh. He's on the YouTube channel, Here Be Dragons. They have a Mandalorian discussion talking about the first half of Mandalorian Season 2, and you'll be able to hear Patman attack him for his views, just like he attacks us for our views. So that's Here Be Dragons YouTube channel.
Are you sure there's only one Patman 23? It feels like he's just got a bunch of content creators in his basement posting as Patman 23. He's got his hands and thoughts and ideas in so many different areas. I feel like he's just a group. There's no way one man could be doing all this.
There are 23 of him.
Okay, that
Patman
makes sense
1,
now. I get it.
He's groany. He's tough. You go straight to Patman 23. Hey, let's get to news. We always talk about this is the current, the only, the first Star Wars live-action show. There are a bunch more coming. From an interview this week on the Jimmy Kimmel Talk Show, actor Diego Luna said he was being interviewed. He was in London at the time, and he said they are currently filming the Star Wars television series Cassian Andor right now. We know from reports that Obi-Wan, the Obi-Wan Kenobi miniseries, is going to start filming next month, January 2021. It's actually going to be filming in London and Boston, if you can believe. Hey, there you got your Jedi right here. No, that's a terrible Boston accent. Can you do a Boston accent? Do one.
Well, when you go down to the corner to buy a pack of ciggies, and then what? There's an Ugnaught there. I mean, we don't cotton the Ugnaughts in this neighborhood.
How about them space apples? So there'll be more Star Wars shows. Catfish, there's a crazy thing I want to talk about, and that is streaming services ratings. Have you heard about these?
All I know about is the most jaw-dropping news from this week, and that is that HBO Max is so desperate for people to watch that essentially Warner Brothers is dumping their entire 2021 slate onto HBO Max for no additional charge.
Right, but there is one negative problem with that.
I think there's a lot of them, but go ahead, yes?
You will be required to watch Matrix 4. So, Catfish, I want to talk...
I'm fine with Matrix 4 as long as they pretend that... I believe they did this with the Terminator series at least once, probably 2 times. As long as they pretend that 2 and 3 didn't happen, I'm fine with 4.
No. Hey, so Catfish, the Nielsen Company, which here in the United States has always kept track of which television shows were popular. They're trying to do this with streaming shows. Now, streaming shows, they keep all the data for themselves. We only have their own word for it. How many people watched their show, how many people streamed it, it's impossible to know. So Nielsen is trying now. It takes them a couple of weeks to compile the data. So this would be for approximately 2 to 3 weeks ago from when this podcast is released. But they released the top 10 streaming shows in the United States. And all but one of them is on the streaming service Netflix.
Ooh.
The top show is that Netflix show, The Queen's Gambit, miniseries, The Queen's Gambit, based on the novel.
Awesome.
The second streaming show, according to this ranking, is The Office, a show that's been off the air for close to a decade. It's still the second most popular streaming show somehow.
Wow.
Third is The Mandalorian, the only non-Netflix show to hit the top 10 of streaming shows. That's slightly incredible for this week of, you would assume, November, maybe right before Thanksgiving, November 2020. Then the rest of the shows, like The Office, they're all old shows, non-Netflix shows, but shows that aired on what you would call traditional, old-school TV, and they're now on Netflix. And so Netflix has one show they created themselves, The Queen's Gambit, that's number 1. Everything else is repeats, and The Mandalorian is really the only other new show in the streaming top 10. Is that incredible to think about?
I'm surprised there's nothing. Amazon Prime hasn't put anything out really lately. I will say this, tip of the cap to you, Bubba, For years, you tried to get me to watch this Schitt's Creek, and nobody cared about it at all. And then they basically won every single award they were nominated for at a perfect time, and now people are soaking this series up.
They certainly are.
You begged me over and over again, please watch this. It's so funny. You got upset with me because I'm an Emmy voter, and you're like, this is horrible. You're a horrible human being for not voting for Schitt's Creek. Guess what? I still didn't vote for them, and it didn't matter. They won everything.
It's incredible. Yeah. When I was a kid, I used to watch SCTV reruns, which were Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara. So I've always loved them. Catfish, is it okay if we actually talk rumors real quick before we get into this episode?
Well, it is, as long as we give a spoiler alert.
Yes, so these are rumors for Season 3. We don't know if they're true, but to be honest, most of these rumors have turned out to be true. If you don't want to know anything about Season 3, just jump ahead 3 minutes and you won't hear them. So we'll give you some time to find your app of choice and move the position indicator forward 3 minutes. Okay, for the rest of us, these people who are good with rumors, who said things like, they built the interior of Boba Fett's ship for Mandalorian Season 2, and here we see it today. The rumor is that in Season 3, they are building a Naboo starfighter, a.k.a. that yellow starfighter from the Phantom Menace that little Annie flew at the end of the movie. So that people have seen it, so they are pretty confident, hey, they're building this for the Mandalorian. But wait for it. The rumor is that your favorite character and mine, Jar Jar, will also appear in Season 3 of The Mandalorian. Oh, my goodness. Are you going to be able to handle that, Catfish?
Misa confused. I don't understand. Jar Jar is, I'm sure there's some Jar Jar stands out there, but I would think of all the characters in the Star Wars universe, he is the most universally disliked character. I don't know what the point is of trying to rehabilitate this character is. I mean, let's just let it go. Mistakes were made. Let's move on. What's going on here, Bubba?
I always tell the story that when I was at the Apple store in the Grove, a shopping center in Los Angeles, and I was getting my iPhone looked at, sitting next to me at the Apple store was Ahmed Best, the performer who gave voice and movement to Jar Jar. And he was trying to help me with my phone. He was like, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? And so for like a lot of people, he seems like a nice guy who was really given a lot of grief, and you don't want any innocent actor to be given a lot of grief when all the choices of what appears in the film are George Lucas's. So if you didn't like Jar Jar, you needed to attack him, not this poor actor. And so I think everybody loves this Mandalorian so much, why not try to rehabilitate the character? And if not, this is what just for this actor. Give this actor kind of a high to go out on rather than always being associated with this dreaded character.
You know what? People in the business understand that he wasn't like, I'm gonna do this no matter what anyone says. I'm gonna do it this way. It's it's not his fault.
No. Listen, George Lucas was giving him directions like faster, more intense, and more Shakespearean, less cartoony voice. Misa don't want to. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it sounds ill-advised, and again, I don't know the reason. It's not like these are the prequel movies, which I think are also, there's no reason to call back to those. All right, Bubba, it's been 3 minutes. I don't want to keep talking.
Yeah, let's keep going.
All right.
Weezer should move on. All right, so.
Oh, boy. Okay,
you edit. All right, so let's get into this episode. Directed by Robert Rodriguez. He was a last-minute replacement director. And
for who?
They have not said. The rumors is Tony Gilroy was going to direct this, and Robert had, but that's a complete rumor. We don't know who. It's just in interviews, Robert Rodriguez has come forward and said, hey, Jon Favreau called me up and said, hey, it's a last minute. I need somebody to direct this episode. And so he jumped in. What is your thoughts about Robert Rodriguez? Do you like him as a director? What are your thoughts on him? I love this episode, and generally I love his action directing. I think he's one of the best action directors with a camera there is. And so I was thrilled to see an episode by him. Do you have any preconceived thoughts on Robert Rodriguez?
Generally, I really like Robert Rodriguez as a director. Most of his things, he does the whole thing, writes, directs the whole thing. And I think sometimes that can be difficult. Mm-hmm. So I just want to separate him as like writer, editor, music. I want to separate all that from him as a director. I think he's an awesome director. And I think anytime that maybe the reason why some of his movies haven't been great is because of the other hats he's been wearing he wasn't as good as that as directing.
Right. Well, he wears a cowboy hat, and sometimes he wears like
a beret.
Right.
Yeah.
There was one moment, there may be more, but the one I really knew was he had Fennec Shan falling backwards yet shooting an enemy. That's exactly what he did in his movie Desperado, and I just love that so much. So I'm thrilled with him. I think he did a great job. And the episode begins with no action. It begins with some very cute father-son moments between Mando and Grogu.
It really is, yeah.
Catfish, on the last podcast, we were talking about, well, okay, his name is Grogu, but might we still in universe call him the child, Baby Yoda? Mando refers to him as kid a lot, and he does call him kid a bit in this episode. But within the first 58 seconds, listeners, I timed this, within the first 58 seconds in the show, Mando says the name Grogu 4 times. It's been a week. How do you feel about the name Grogu?
I mean, I'm still not a fan of it. Obviously, they're not going to let us forget it. I mean, you have to say that this is sort of ballsy. I don't know if that term is too ribald or is it ribald? I don't know. It's one of those words I don't know how to pronounce. For Disney to have gone 12 episodes without knowing the name and then having a name. I just loved it because of not only Grogu's reactions, but also that it made the Mandalorian laugh. Mandalorian seems kind of like a miserable bastard with no joy in his life. So it was really nice just to hear him laughing.
Yeah, he even said Dank Farrik with a smile behind his helmet. I mean, the guy...
Yeah.
Now, Catfish, he does have a very odd line. He's breaking up a bit. You can kind of tell. He mentions to Grogu, No, I'm not upset when I said Dank Farrik. It's just when the nice lady said you had training, I just...
Bubba, I spit out my tea at that moment. I was sipping my tea, and I said nothing. And I just thought, this shows not only is Mando mostly miserable, but he sort of mostly knows shady and rough characters. He has very limited experience with nice people. Ahsoka, badass, yes, completely. Righteous, yes. Nice lady, no.
At this point, Mando's glad he's wearing a helmet so no one can see his tears. You could tell Pedro Pascal with his voice is trying to do a lot to say, hey, yeah, kid, I got to put you down. They go to the Southern California planet of Tython. Catfish, this looks like a place, if we left your house, we could be in Tython in, 15 minutes? I mean, there's a lot of Southern California that looks like Tython.
Yeah, but if we really wanted to be able to shoot without any noises of the city, we might have to drive about 45 minutes.
And I'm mentioning this, listeners, because everybody knows Disney Plus has released all this incredible technology that they have in this show, where they really have done very minimal outside shooting at all. They're always inside, even though they're on these vistas and you see these vistas, they're inside. I watch this episode and I think either this technology is truly incredible or they did go out and shoot in some of these rocky canyons around Southern California, because there's wind on the plants, there's wind on Grogu's hair, and you think, well, okay, there was wind in other scenes. Yes, but Mando is walking up a mountain and the plants on the mountain are moving in the wind, in the shadows. If they did this in the volume, the special effects thing where they shoot 90% of The Mandalorian, this technology is incredible. It really did look, almost every shot did look like they were out on location somewhere.
No, I really felt like they went outside. And I have to say, it's funny because sometimes, obviously, last year it was a lot because our boy Pedro was actually on Broadway while they were shooting some of this. It kind of almost feels like there was a lot of movement that he did in this one. Maybe it's just because I know that they're not having him scramble over rocks with the helmet on, but it really felt like I could sense the difference between when somebody else was in it and when he was in it. So that's interesting. I'm assuming whoever's in there is also his stunt double.
In today's credits, they had 3 people listed as his stunt double. So, they don't want to slow down filming. Okay, he twisted his ankle. Next guy.
Right. Somebody has to do his stunt hair inside the helmet.
Oh, awesome. Mando, this beginning part, Mando has become your dad. Don't you want to learn more of that Jedi stuff? Hey, looks like that's a magic rock I'm supposed to take you to. This is Dad taking you to soccer practice. It's even got a dad joke. Looks like we're going to have to travel the last stretch with the windows down. Hello. Hurry up, kid. I mean, this is your dad.
I also like when he was like, he's trying to make jokes. Does this look Jedi to you? And then he says, this is the seeing stone. Are you seeing anything? It is all very dad here in this section.
And Grogu, he's going to be taking forever in his, what was it, octuple Z's. He's got to get up. He's in this force field. And to me, he takes so long. It's like poor Grogu was stuck online waiting for customer service. He's like, I'm projecting into the galaxy. Is anybody going to pick up here? Hello?
Yeah. I suppose we're going to talk about it later, but there was some nonsensical stuff that the Mandalorian was doing here. Uh-huh. He may be a miserable bastard, but he's not dumb. So the fact that he tries 3 times to get in when it's clear he's just going to be knocked back is strange.
He loves his kid.
Yeah. Well, I know he loves the kid, but also it's like, I mean, the Mandalorian is pretty high powered. That is like you're being attacked, right? Let's say you're being attacked from the air and your family's down in a bunker a couple levels below ground. And you say to him, I'm going to save you. I'm going to take you upstairs. Like, Grogu is safe right where he is. And as we see at the end, the smartest thing to do would have been just stay right there and defend him.
No, I love, that's my level of heroics. You're in an impenetrable force field. I'll go protect you. So, okay, I've already said it, and it's silly for me to say it. When Boba Fett flies in on that Slave One, and Mando is looking up, and he sees the Slave One, he sees Boba Fett's spaceship, I lost myself. I was so excited. And last night, I went over to Nephew Paul, my sister's house, and watched the episode with Nephew Paul, my sister, and her neighbor Kate. And so I knew the Slave One was coming, and so I was doing the whole thing. I wasn't even watching the show. I was just watching Nephew Paul's reaction. And what was funny is when I first saw it, I was like, whoa, yeah, hell yeah. Nephew Paul, he was like real quiet, but his eyes were darting around. His eyes were darting around, and then finally he goes, isn't that? And I'm like, say it. And he turns to his mom and he goes, isn't that Boba Fett's spaceship? And then when the action broke out, he was like, oh, this is on. He was so excited. It was great. I was so excited. Boba has seen better days, but he is there to kick some butt. And he has a mission. Just like everybody on this show has a mission. Mm-hmm. Mando had his mission. Boba has a mission. I want my armor back.
You know what? And that comes in direct contrast with what seems like... Again, Mando, not a guy full of joy. So I'm glad that he has a job here, which is to see Grogu safely back to people who can help him. Because then that means he has less time for his other miserable job, which is roaming the galaxy, making sure that not one piece of Mandalorian army is owned by armor is owned by anybody other than
my God! Don't rip off my culture,
Mandalorian. I know, right? He's like, I'm surprised when he gives a armor back, he's not like, and you better keep that helmet on.
Well, Catfish, this is ridiculous. Boba Fett, I went 9 out of 10, and all my picks are nit. They are minor things. This actor, Temuera Morrison, who played Jango Fett 20 years ago at Attack of the Clones, he's 20 years older in real life than his character is supposed to be. His character, Boba Fett, a clone who didn't have age acceleration, he should be, mid-40s at this time. This guy is over 60. And so, the Sarlacc was rough on his face and his waistline, but still, I was so excited. I was just over the moon that Boba's back. Mando, are you a Jedi? Boba Fett should have said, F no. My dad was decapitated by a Jedi. I hate Jedi. What are you doing with the kid? Mando, nothing. No, not calling anybody.
I mean, oh boy. We project a lot onto him because we don't see his face.
Right.
I just hope that at some point, I know he's got hashtag life goals, but like, take some time to smell the flowers, bro.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Hey, how about when you meet another Mandalorian, stop pissing them off? Boba did have to do a almost identical callback to a line his father Jango said in Attack of the Clones, where Boba said in this episode, he goes, "I'm a simple man making my way through the galaxy," where his father actually had said universe. Hilarious callback. And this is 5 years after Boba went into the Sarlacc. In any of that 5-year period, theoretically gotten that armor back from Cobb Vanth. He didn't. Why didn't he? Well, Disney Plus will give him his own show to explain. Instead, we have this awesome standoff. And I want to know how you feel about this character being back, Fennec Shand. She was dead, and now she's back on the show. She has abs to die for. She's been doing crunches. Are you excited that they brought this character back from the dead, or is that a cheat? What do you think?
It's fine for me. I was just a little bit confused. I'm like, okay, so is that like a robotic lower intestine? I'm not sure what she's showing off there. I mean, is she full robot? Tell me what your interpretation of her status is.
She's got a metal tummy. And you're right. She's got piping for intestines. That's the only thing that makes sense if her middle section is completely gone. Of course, I see that and I think to myself, you don't think Ugg Nolte's like, "Hey, anybody want to fix this shoulder I was shot? My gut still works.
Well,
come on."
I'll say this, and I know that you were completely convinced of this fact last year.
Yeah.
But it basically just reinforces that Boba is the guy that we saw at the end of an episode last year when we just saw the feet of somebody stepping up to her. So now that's completely confirmed. Now, I will have to say this, I guess, so she's decided he saved her, so it's that old thing, I owe my life to you so you can waste it any way you want. Because now she's got to follow him. And one thing you could say about Boba Fett is he does seem to embrace the Mandalorian code, which is, I promised you something and I'm going to carry it through, even if it means I have to do like 12 times the work that I originally agreed to do.
Look, when I said your safety and the child's safety, I didn't mean in perpetuity. I mean, I got a life, buddy.
Right. Yeah, no, that's what I would say. Yeah, I kept him safe. Later.
Well, this brings up another one of my nitpicks, is that I loved that Boba and Jango were always villains. Yes, they may have had a code, but they were always working with the bad guys. When they got it, it was theoretically good news for the heroes. They've got to find a way somehow in these next couple of episodes to keep giving me Boba's bad side. He's got a bloodlust from this beatdown he puts on these stormtroopers in this episode. But I want to see some of his kind of sneaky evil, too, because he was the one who found the Millennium Falcon after the asteroid chase in The Empire Strikes Back. You know, he's the guy who was like, what if he doesn't survive? He's worth a lot to me. I want to see that side of him, too.
All right. So, as we all know, in the last, it's actually been quite a while, maybe 15 years, Sopranos, Breaking Bad, there's been a lot of anti-heroes as kind of protagonists for shows. Do you really think Disney Plus is going to go down that route? I'm not quite
Disney
sure
Plus.
they have
Give
the
it
taste
to me.
for that.
Give it to me, Disney Plus. Come on.
Well, then they could just name the show Breaking Boba.
Hell yeah, I would love it. Sign me up. Hulu
I know
Plus.
you would love it.
Hulu,
I know you
let's
would
go.
love it.
Okay.
Shocking. The guy who created a podcast to celebrate Joffrey Baratheon is all in
First
on
of his
Boba
name.
being bad.
First in your hearts. Okay, so Catfish, we had another request from a listener. A couple episodes ago, we played the game, how many stormtroopers died in this attack? And so in the previous episode, it was, I believe, 39 or 38 in the Grief Karga, Cara Dune. Let's bust up this Imperial base on Navarro.
All right, now I'm just going to say this. I hope that you grab the number, and what I want people to do is, because I'm going to make the same guess, I want you to give me a number, and then I'm going to go higher or lower. You give me a number, and then me and the audience will think about it, and then we'll see if we're right. So just give me a number, and then I'm going to guess higher than that number or lower than that number. I don't know. Do you want to just use the number from last episode? Let's do that. Did more people die in this episode than in that previous episode?
Okay, what is your guess, Catfish?
Do 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 pew 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 pew
Do,
pew
do,
pew
do,
pew pew pew.
pew.
Okay, even though when they came out, it really only looked like 15 and like another 15.
Right.
I'm still gonna guess more, even though that somehow more died than I saw coming out of the ships, because it really felt like it. So I'm going to say more, even though the answer is probably less. It felt like more. What is the answer? I'm trying to have it both ways, but my final answer is less.
Well, I'm going to allow listeners to guess, and we'll tell them at the end of the discussion of the episode part, but it is definitely more in this one. More in this one than in the episode
I was right.
before.
Well, and how can that be, since it didn't seem like that many came out, but that many got killed? You know what? Maybe it is that only some were stunned and then got back up.
This is the clown car of dropships.
You know, the other thing that's weird is there were a couple of moments when they were pulled out further. Yeah. I don't know why they decided to do this, but there were some moments of obvious CGI with the stormtroopers.
Oh, there had to be, right.
One of them was when they were coming out of the ship, because I guess they didn't really obviously have those ships.
Right.
Another one was when we were pulled back far and we were seeing the gunfight from like up above. And so there were a couple times when it felt a little wonky as far as the CGI.
Oh, I'm with you. Well, that was because prove me wrong, but I think because they shot this on location, but there's so many things that you couldn't do on location. That is one of the harder things, is combining live and CG creations into one shot. And so I think that's why there were some wonky things in that. My own guess.
Right. Well, the thing that people usually do when they're on location and they're going to have a background is they just put up a huge green screen.
Exactly.
So
right.
I don't know. Maybe the green screen they didn't have big enough green screen. I'm not sure. But for the most part, it looked great.
Do you have a favorite bit of this battle? Do you have a favorite kill, favorite action moment? I'll just list a couple of mine.
Okay.
I'd say a couple, and they're like 5. We've got Stormtrooper who ping-pongs down the boulders after Boba Fett takes him out. We've got the Indiana Jones boulder roll smackdown. Your whistling birds come back. In my personal favorite, Boba punches a guy in the gut, and while he's punching him, hits him with what looks like a rocket, and the guy shoots off several feet away. I loved it. Those were my favorite. You got any favorite moments in this, or any I mentioned?
I got 2. One of them is what I'm referring to as the Boba Fett knee cannon. It was the last thing I expected. The knee cannon was amazing. But honestly, one of my favorite bits was just a funny one. You've got the jerk there, the stormtrooper boss, who's like telling them to essentially run themselves into the meat grinder. And at one point, a guy's like, "It's too hard. They're really pinning us down." And the stormtrooper boss goes, "Flank them, you idiot!" And the guy takes like 2 steps and gets shot.
Why didn't he flank them? He deserved it.
I just laughed. It was like, "Go get him." Okay. That was a funny bit. I like the funny bit, but as I mentioned earlier, of all that stuff, the thing that you don't usually see, you see these guys in fights, in laser battles, they get shot, they go down. You don't even usually see smoking armor. They just go down and their armor's just as clean as it was. So I don't know how they got hurt, but I can never recall seeing like in a battle, Stormtrooper being taken down by Malay, to see Boba Fett crush a stormtrooper's helmet. That to me was like, whoa, that's like personal. You know, it's I was surprised to see that from Disney Plus, because again, we're usually seeing the pew 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 and you're like, you could pretend, oh, they're just sleeping or whatever, but that blow to the head was about as vicious as a thing as you're going to see on Disney Plus, unless you watch Flubber.
I was sure you were going to go to your go-to, unless you watch Gus, what he does to those footballs.
Oyich!
So a second dropship comes and joins the battle, so even more stormtroopers can come out.
Oh, boy.
And when Boba takes them out, those ships out, this was classic. That is almost a Mandalicious line. It's a Fettalicious line. I was actually aiming for the other one. Oh, so good.
That is so good. Now we have to think of the, the poor stormtroopers. There's a disconnect, right? They're like, we're going down there, we're going to take care of business. When Moff Gideon is thinking, all right, let's just send these guys in to get mowed down, and whatever they do, and then we'll send in the real guys.
Well, before the real guys get released, though, Catfish, how shocked were you that R.I.P. Razor Crest, Mando's ship, is totaled? We've watched this thing be in terrible shape all season long. He gets it repaired a couple episodes ago. Now he's ruined the warranty. Oh, my Lord. That thing is tough.
This is fascinating because this is a real game changer. I don't think you can undersell how much this changes things. I mean, now he's pretty much stuck with Boba Fett, which I didn't anticipate. And then the question is, how is he going to get his own ship again? I mean, is he going to have to join with the rebels? There's sort of a sense of that. And maybe they've got a POS ship lying around that he can borrow. This is interesting.
Well, I know he's got some Beskar. Hey, Beskar Spear, best offer, or a new ship.
He's got the Beskar. He found the silver ball, so that's the one thing that Yoda cares about that he cannot eat. Grogu.
Yeah, I was going to correct you.
Thank you. So he's got the important things. Beskar Spear, silver ball, his righteousness about who can wear Mandalorian armor.
Yeah, that's priceless. Now, I want to point out, listeners, in this new world of Star Wars collectibles and Star Wars toys, Hasbro has this thing called HasLab, where they're like, well, should we really spend the money to develop and make and produce this toy if there are not enough people buying it? So Hasbro, through their HasLab, did this crowdfunding project to say, hey, does anybody want a Razor Crest? Now, you would have to join in, and it's a $349.99 in the U.S. to join this crowdfunding to get a Razor Crest toy. That's the size for an actual action figure. So if you think of an action figure being about 6 inches tall, this is a Razor Crest, and it looks great when you look online at this toy they built and people buy. But are Star Wars fans going to want this ship, which is only in a season and a half and just got destroyed? I paid $350 for it. What's going on?
Wow. Well, I mean, it all depends on what the Mandalorian ends up with. I mean, this is a big deal. The other thing is, I know that we've been on other planets within one episode.
Yeah.
But this is the first episode to me that felt like, wow, there's a lot of different things going on. I mean, essentially, it almost seemed like where they would usually end a regular episode, they still had like another 8 minutes after that.
No, that's a great point. And this is one of the shortest episodes ever. But
it is. By the time,
so much was happening,
they actually, including the previously on, up until when they started the credits, it was like 29:46 or something like that. Less than a half hour, including the previously on.
Exactly right. It's crazy. Okay, so we have had our Fett fodder of these stormtroopers. We cut up into the ship that just blew up the Razor Crest, this Imperial ship. Moff Gideon's there. He asks his underling, have the Dark Troopers been engaged? I'm thinking to myself, why wait? Engage them. These guys come out. To me, they appear to be all droid, but some fans online are saying they're droid-human hybrids. This is our introduction to them. What do you think?
Right. Well, that's what we were speculating on when we saw in the first place. And I kind of had felt, I think when we talked last time, that these were somehow droid-human hybrids. And they do have the scary red eyes.
Oh, yeah.
They obviously, well, I mean, we don't see it in this episode, but there's no doubt that you would probably have to use about 200 stormtrooper uniforms to create one dark trooper uniform as far as their strength and ability to resist incoming fire. Mm-hmm. But this is, the other thing that's kind of fascinating here is they're like, we have about 20 of them, but we only need 4 for this mission. So the scary thing is, like, are these so powerful that we only need 4 and we've got so many more? Or was it that, like, with anything that you develop that's new, it's like, all right, well, this guy over here is a little janky. We had to cannibalize some of his parts for this guy. Like, maybe they only got 4 that are actually good to go.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. These things are going to be the big bad that our heroes are going to have to battle if they want Grogu back. Yeah, if. They're going to have to go through these things, so we'll have to see. Boba Fett could have blown them out of the sky, but Mando said no. He doesn't want that child hurt. So this brought me to another head-scratching moment in the episode. Boba flies up. He sees this Imperial Star Cruiser, and he's like, they're back. The Empire. Fennec Shand. How can that be? I'm thinking to myself, guys, you just spent 30 minutes fighting stormtroopers, and you're shot. Wait, the Empire's back? This isn't a spice dream. That's a nice little in-world reference there. And the Empire's back. Boba, once again, who's in my mind is always a really shady customer, he's going to be a man of honor. He's going to follow up on his word, and he's going to protect the child. And he's going to prove to Mando, for absolutely no reason. I mean, he's got the armor on him, but he's like, here, I've got my Wikipedia page in hollow form in the armor. See? My father, Django, was a foundling and fought in the Mandalorian Civil War.
You know, there's been so many edits to that Wikipedia page, it's now locked for editing.
So Boba and Fennec Fan. How is Fennec? I should point that I didn't point out Fennec's little ridiculous line earlier in the episode. He's like, yeah, my partner has her gun set on your little child up there. And Fennec said, you remember me, you know I don't miss. And I thought back to that episode last year, and I'm like, actually, you did miss several times because we were driving our speeders right at you. Listen, that doesn't matter. So the bad guys, or I should say the questionably moral people, are joining with Mando on this mission to get the kid back.
But one weird thing happened to me and that I noticed. So obviously, Boba Fett's ship, which is...
Slave One.
Yeah. Slave One. I didn't get that same thrill. I'm like, all right, fine, this is a cool ship. But the way it flies is weird. Most ships, when they fly, they're pointed the same way that they land.
Exactly right.
This one, you're flying one way, and at the last minute, you like flip over onto your back. I hope they've got barf bags in the Slave One. That's all I have to say.
In space, no one can hear you barf.
Yeah, true story.
I think it's a great ship. I've always loved that ship. And Catfish, this is what they say. The legend of the ship design of the Slave One is they were designed on L.A. streetlights. And you drive around L.A. and you look at certain streetlights, you can see it. So if you think about the landing part, that's where the light's going to come out. To me, it does kind of look like the streetlights. I heard that, and then I finally paid attention to some streetlights actually on the 10 just past downtown, and I was like, yeah, these do kind of look like the Slave One ship. I love it.
I would suggest for anyone wanting to check that out themselves in the Los Angeles area to maybe do it on a street where you could go like 20 miles an hour and not when you're on the freeway.
I was on the freeway. I'm sorry.
Oh, boy.
Well, hey, you know somebody who would pull me over on the freeway? Cara Dune, Marshal of the New Republic. We're back on Navarro. Yeah, Cara Dune plural, bull, your girl. We're back on Navarro. And here's another head scratcher. Mando, I heard rumors that you might have gone legit. Who was spreading these rumors? Ahsoka? This magistrate last week told me. You know, he's only been gone for one episode. I heard these rumors from this.
Well, you know, that's one thing I forgot to mention here was it was such a delight, and it passed over really quick because so much was going on. It was such a delight after she mentioned it last episode that he just went straight to this planet that was talked about last week. I think the betting odds would have been against him actually going right to the planet.
So, hey, we've got to do these things. We've got to pull out ex-Imperial sharpshooter actor Bill Burr, the character Miggs Mayfield. Now, back in Season 1, Episode 5, the infamous Prison Break episode, he had mentioned he was an ex-Imperial sharpshooter, and Mando made some fun, and he goes, I wasn't a damn stormtrooper, a.k.a. I could hit something. So, Catfish, Cara Dune, is like, listen, you know how I feel about the Empire, but these stripes mean there are rules I have to follow. Mando, they have the kid. Cara Dune, okay, sure, release all the prisoners, no crime, everybody, go crazy. Is that what we're going to see next week? Are we going to see a Prison Break Mayfield out of the Carthon chop fields?
That would for sure be my guess.
But that means another week of Grogu with Moff Gideon. And Grogu
for sure.
has joined professional wrestling. He's a savage. He's throwing these stormtroopers off the ropes, and he's beating them up. Grogu is one bad mother.
Shut your mouth.
I'm just talking about Grogu.
Yeah.
He's evil, Catfish. You've been talking about this. You've been predicting this forever. Grogu has some dark side in him, boy.
It's funny that obviously the Grogu stands who are like, nope, completely fine. I'm not seeing any of the signs that he is bad. Will defend him because these are the troopers. Now, I don't imagine the Star Troopers are actually doing anything to him without Moff Gideon there. But nonetheless, he decides to choreograph his own Three Stooges short right here. Having one take the legs out from the other and then slamming them into each other. It was a little surprising. I mentioned before that there are two things in this show that they have to be very careful with, but sometimes you say to yourself, well, why didn't they pull it out here? One of them is Mandalorian's little birds. He pulls them out. If it was me, I would start every battle with the little birds, and then whoever's left, in fact, obviously they must come back. So for me, I would just be like, little birds go, little birds come back, little birds go, little birds come back. That's one thing they have to be careful with. And the other thing they have to be careful with is Grogu's use of the Force. So we're seeing it here, and I think they do a very smart thing here, though, in that when we have Moff Gideon come in, of course, once Grogu uses a little bit of the Force, it's sleepy time, but it also appears that Moff Gideon can just shut Grogu down, Force-wise.
Yeah.
They put on the most adorable little handcuffs on Grogu. What, Bubba?
Yeah.
Did they have unruly babies on that ship? Or were they like, we have Grogu's measurements from the last time when the client had him, so let's craft these little baby handcuffs.
Baby shackles, they're fun for me and you. That was hilarious. That was great. I loved it. I also loved a Christmas Story shout out when Gideon said, "You're not ready to play with such things as the Darksaber. Liable to put an eye out with one of these." Love it. It's Christmas. Good work, Moff Gideon.
Nice job, Disney Plus, and the guy who's in charge of it all. If you had seen a long time ago, if you had seen Jon Favreau's career, would you have ever anticipated being a showrunner is not even the apt description for what he's doing here.
That's
I mean,
correct.
he's essentially the auteur behind this whole show, and I think he's doing a fabulous job.
Listen, when I saw him in Rudy, I didn't recognize him because I never saw Rudy. But I was one of the first people to see Swingers. I saw it, I think, opening weekend in Chicago when I was living there. From everything we've heard about him, he's made some dud movies. His movie Made, I think, was kind of a dud. But he definitely has the right attitude, and he has a love for it. So to me, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I have a love for it too, but there's no way I could do something like this. You got to give a shout out to him.
Oh, yeah, you do have to give a shout out to him. Tip of the cap to our boy Favreau.
Focus on one last thing.
Yeah.
Is that Moff Gideon says, get Dr. Pershing. We've got our donor. So, Bubba, we are one step closer to them using Grogu's blood to bring back the client.
His mentor will be brought back to life.
Exactly. They had to reimagine their goals. As soon as they lost the client, they're like, stop everything. We have to bring back the client.
Please. I would love it. How about this? Are we going to see that next week, or is next week just the prison break and we won't see our villains again until the final episode? Any guesses? Any thoughts? I think maybe at this point we do have to see him. As long as Grogu's with him, we got to see him.
I think it'll be like 2 episodes ago where we saw Moff Gideon at the end for like a minute. I think it's going to be like that.
Listeners, What do you think? Tell us at DoublePHQ on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook.com/DoublePHQ. We've got a bunch of great feedback. And Catfish, let's get to it right now.
All right. Well, we got some general feedback from Laura McMillian. She says, "Hi, guys. I was pleasantly surprised to see the podcast show up on my player this morning. It made my chores much easier. It will take a couple days to finish, and I'll get back with you." Did she get back with us?
No, that podcast listen is just going way too long for poor Laura. We do have long podcast listeners. We hope you love them. Sorry, we ramble on too much.
She is the second person to give us some initial feedback and then not come back for more. Ron Rainier Jr. says, double L's.
Double L's.
Yeah, loyal listeners are always happy with you. We eagerly awaited your next take on how wonderful Joffrey was for years after his fake death. Thank you.
Man. The good double R, Ron Rainier, thank you so much. From Tracy on Twitter at Trazy. I got to spell this out because Tracy, I mentioned people, we mentioned their feedback. You should follow them as well. And Tracy's a good follow. And so it's at TRACEE, the number 2 EZ. Tracy 2 EZ. Love it. She said, does Catfish know what Admiral Thrawn looks like? That's the character that Ahsoka Tano mentioned last week. Loving the podcast, guys. So thank you so much. So Catfish, do you know what Admiral Thrawn looks like?
No. No idea.
All I'll say is he's an alien, and he looks a bit like what happens to Tobias Fuke when he blues himself.
Okay, great.
On Arrested Development. Hey, we got more feedback for you to read, Catfish.
Oh, all right. Ministro da Alucinos Interiores at Villa Moisino says, ha ha, here I am again to make things easier for you guys. Call me Vinny. Simple and direct. Thanks, Vinny.
Oh, I'd never had any problem pronouncing your Twitter handle, Vinny.
No problem.
Hey, on Twitter, I asked the question, hey, is there a character from The Mandalorian? Because we were talking about spin-off shows last week. I said, is there a character from The Mandalorian who should get their own series? And Jay, who's at Failed Musician on Twitter, he said, yeah, Bill Burr's character. And maybe the robot who was with him who got blown up. The meathead guy, the guy with horns, and the wildling, don't have to be in the show. So that's Jay at Failed Musician. Well, Jay, you're about to get Bill Burr back, and I would assume without those other characters, so we shall see.
Camille at Harley Camille says, regarding Chapter 14, a lot to process. It was so good until the end. I did shed some tears. I didn't expect the Death Troopers to be so robotic and creepy as hell.
Oh, man. Love Harley Camille's tweets on Twitter. D, who's at D Reluctant Wit, said, we finally found a weakness for that stormtrooper armor. A big stick.
I mean, I would like to know, to be honest, D, what the armor can hold up against. I think a paper airplane could knock somebody down in it.
Tiny, tiny pebbles.
Nathan Savka says, how do y'all enjoy watching The Mandalorian? My third child was born in October. He regularly wakes up around 3 a.m. to eat. So on Friday morning, he gets a bottle as the episode starts, and he's typically crashed out of my chest by the halfway mark. Oh, just like Grogu. I became a Star Wars fan when I watched the original trilogy with my father, doing my part to create the next generation of fans.
Oh, great job. Congratulations on your third child, Nathan.
Congratulations. I'm glad someone is doing this. Because I am not bringing up the next generation, nor should I. From the second the title card hit, I knew there wasn't going to be a happy ending to Chapter 14. However, this was the perfect handling of Boba Fett, at least for me. I was glad to see him be a badass who would do the right thing, well, as long as it still benefited him. Sound familiar? I watched the episodes with my 2-month-old son sitting on my lap, so the heavy dad vibes this episode hit me hard. I expected Mando to lose the child, but the Razor Crest, too. No! Nathan, he's like, that's fine, Grogu. Oh, no, the Razor Crest.
Right.
Bubba, I'm going to make you read some of this Chapter 13 feedback.
Oh, no. Okay.
Mostly because our loyal listeners are coming for you, Bubba, and they're coming hard.
They are. So last week, Chapter 13, The Jedi, I was tough on. I said it was my least favorite episode of the season. And I said, hey, I will listen to your feedback. Who cares what I think? I want to know what you think.
You gave it a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, Harley Camille said, you're talking to me. She said, you're harsh and wrong. Sorry. Not sorry.
Yeah. Well, the only problem with Camille's tweet, as I said to her, was the apology. No, just tell us when we're harsh and wrong. We can take it.
Right. Our girl, Shakes of Thrones, another great Twitter handle, at Shakes of Thrones, wrote, how could my favorite podcast be so wrong about a perfectly 10 out of 10 Mando episode? 3 pouring, crying emojis. More angst coming when I finish your coverage. Ooh, Shakes was not happy, Catfish.
Yeah, she's the second person who promised to get back to us and then was like, they're not worth it. They're not worthy. Patman, at Patman23, the man who has 74 hours in the day, says, I'll join in with Camille's accurate assessment. I felt your criticism of the magistrate was a bit much. We didn't get backstory for Titus Welliver's Imperial officer either, and the show, I felt, established what we needed to know about the magistrate. I'm not a Clone Wars watcher, nor have I seen Rebels, but I know that Ahsoka was Anakin's Padawan, and if she's after the magistrate for info on Grand Admiral Thrawn, I know him from the non-canon Zahn books, that communicates enough import to me as to the magistrate's relevance. I was delighted to see Dan Inosanto's daughter. Dan is a favorite stuntman and excellent martial arts teacher in such a role in an iconic genre-inspired fight, spear versus double-wield weaponry. It scratched a lot of the action itch. Man. And as I said, not only Don Inosanto's daughter, but Bruce Lee's goddaughter.
That is hardcore. Okay. One final thing, feedback from last week's episode, The Jedi, Chapter 13. Michael B. Swarden, who's at Lord of Sword 94, wrote, The Mandalorian isn't that great of a show in the first place. The writing is mediocre at best. The plots aren't that strong either. Also, Ahsoka is way spunkier than we got. So who's wrong with that rating again? Oh my goodness. Michael B. Swarden. He's coming.
He came out swinging that sword.
He did. We got one bit of feedback while we were recording this podcast. It's from our loyal listener, Endless Mike, at Endless Mike03. This is about the most recent episode of The Mandalorian. He wrote, one mechanical thing bothered me. Mando put his jetpack down in the standoff with Boba, and he never put it back on. Thus, he has to run up the hill on his dumb legs when the Dark Troopers came. Seemed contrived to keep him from flying after them. Well, Endless Mike, we've seen him control that jetpack from like his wrist controls. So why couldn't he just hit something on his wrist and have the jetpack fly to him so then he could fly up to baby Grogu? You're right. They had to prevent him from stopping those Dark Troopers, and that's the best we had.
It's very funny, too, because we had an insert shot of him putting it down at the rock.
Oh, yeah.
On the rock. So it was very clear. It's a big flashing light. Hey, he doesn't have this on. I don't know if you guys paid any attention, but he does not have his jetpack.
Wait, does he? I can't remember. Does he have his jetpack or not?
He put it down.
Oh, okay. Catfish, in the old days, we used to beg and plead with people to give us iTunes reviews, Apple Podcast reviews. Because we haven't been asking for it as much, I thought, maybe I should look and see if we got any new ones. And we have a bunch of great new reviews. This is so great. Thank you, listeners.
Oh, man, I love it. We have SC241. The title is LL.
Double L.
Loyal listener, longtime listener, lovely listener, first-time reviewer, 5 stars. Love The Gifted and the Damned, the Joffrey podcast, Wind and Caves, and now Parsec Passion. Highly recommend. They are definitely a loyal listener. They're going back.
We love it. Also, we had a review from Maddie. Matt, I love Strumpers. I love Trumper. I love Strumper. Matt, I believe Matt or Maddie, however, they titled their review, Enjoyable Listen, 5 stars, great discussion. I'm LOLing while listening as I work from home between Mandalorian episodes. Hashtag priorities. Oh,
yes,
thank you.
Excellent. From the UK, from Ratchet Oust. Consistently great, 5 stars. Love any podcast from these two.
Thank you so much.
We love those kind of reviews. And from Canada, the great Oafburger. I love that handle. Great show, 5 stars. Fun podcast of a fun show. I have spoken.
Oafburger has given us a couple reviews on several of our podcasts. Thank you guys so much. We love reviews. Wherever you get this podcast, please leave a written review. It certainly helps other people out there, bounty hunters trying to find the best Mando podcast, find us. Catfish, it's time for our segments. And the segment that is impossible to pronounce, the Grogorable moments of the episode.
Do we want to do this before the music, or do we want to do the music now?
Oh, wait, that's a great point. Let's do the music.
Hey, everybody. Double M with you again. 2 themes to talk about this time around, or at least possibly one theme and definitely another. Did you notice that the music changed whenever we saw Boba Fett fighting? We would hear other things when it was Din or when it was Fennec. The music would vary. Sometimes it'd be more main theme oriented. Sometimes it'd be other music oriented. But when Boba Fett would fight, there was a very distinctive motif that came around. This one. So I went back to the first episode of this season, Chapter 9, to see if we heard it there. And we didn't. The only time when we saw Boba Fett, we had that kind of, I don't know, you want to call it a seashell horn kind of sound? We had that in this episode too, but specifically for Boba Fett fighting, we had that. And I thought, now why do that? And then I looked at what made up that melody, and I realized exactly why Ludwig did that. The melody is based on a diminished chord. And I don't remember if I've mentioned this in this podcast yet or not, but if I haven't, diminished chords are symmetrical. And maybe I've mentioned this, maybe I haven't, but when it comes to beats, to the rhythm of things, we like symmetry. But when it comes to harmony, our brains tend to go, whoa, wait a minute, that's too symmetrical. It's very weird. How is this chord symmetrical? Well, it divides all of the possible notes between octaves into equal parts. And in fact, the scale that you use that this chord is derived from is also in equal parts. That's symmetrical because there's actually 8 notes, easily divisible by 2s and 4s, before you start repeating notes in that scale. Most scales that we use have 7 notes and then start to repeat. That's not symmetrical. There has to be a midpoint in order to make it symmetrical. You have to have something on either side, but you still have that odd one out. Here you don't. It's just pairs and pairs and pairs. And what that does is it creates ambiguity. We aren't able to process where that chord could go. In fact, if you just play different notes randomly by skipping a few every other time, you really can't tell where the center of harmony is. There's no clear resolution, and we as human beings, asymmetry will help us find conclusion. We're looking for this. But you never get that in this scale. There is no way to achieve it. Everything's off slightly. Everything is exactly the same distance all around. And one thing that an old guy from Greece named Pythagoras, you may have heard of him regarding triangles, he studied the mathematic applications to music as well. And one thing he discovered is that we humans, just for whatever reason, don't like symmetry in our harmony because we don't find resolution when we don't have a slope to go down one side or the other. That has a couple of applications for Boba Fett. It makes him more menacing than just a standard minor chord would, or some kind of cluster that would just be uncomfortable, because you don't know what Boba Fett's going to do. Another thing that it does is it allows Ludwig to actually play that same theme from the same scale in 4 different keys, so it makes it even more unpredictable. Now, is Ludwig trying to tell us something narratively with this music? Who knows? All it really needs to tell you is that if you're facing Boba Fett, you have no idea what kind of move he's going to make. And that makes him scary. Just like diminished chords are usually the ones that we associate with fear most. Speaking of fear, there's another theme that I promised you. And we did hear this theme in the episode where we last saw Moff Gideon, when it was being reported to him that the tracking beacon had been placed on the Razor Crest. We heard this. So you heard that when Moff Gideon was being informed about the tracking beacon. You also heard it in this episode as he was walking towards Grogu's cell. So it's definitely established as a theme for Moff Gideon between 2 different episodes. It has that minor sound because he's a nasty guy. And minor tends to make us more concerned or serious or scared than major does. It'd be quite comical if he had a major sounding kind of melody. We don't want that. But that's all I've got for this week. Back to the boys.
Double M, Matt Murdick, knocking out of the park like usual. Hey, so now that we've done the music, it's always a bit of a letdown, but the thing that picks us up is our boy Grogu. It's time for our Grogorable moments. Do you have any, Catfish?
Oh, we've got a bunch of Grogorable moments this episode, as with every episode. I loved at the beginning of the episode when you mentioned, Mando kept saying Grogu's name, and every time Grogu would come to attention and coo, and then the Mando would laugh. It's nice to know that he has any lightness in his being. Yeah. I loved it when he was selfish with the ball. He's like, my ball. The ears flapping while on his windows down jetpack ride.
Great.
The moment with the butterflies when he was on the rock. Oh, that was cute. The Octuple Z's moment, the meditation. He actually looked a lot older when he was meditating with the eyes closed. He looked a lot like
absolutely
Yoda.
Correct. Absolutely correct, Catfish.
So he was less cute there, but when he was done and he just kind of fell over, I've been a little critical of some of the Grogu moments here when we're not just seeing a close-up. But the fall over into a nap was amazing. And then, as we both said, the baby Shackles. You're just seeing him there with his little baby Shackles on. Bubba, what was your Grogurable moment of this episode?
Well, in honor of Nathan, our loyal listener who has a 2-month-old, I'm going to say the baby Shackles.
Get some of those, Nathan. Necessary.
Yeah, I know. Very necessary. How about you? What was your Grogorable moment of the episode?
I mean, it's tough because you know how much I love anytime Grogu has got his head out the window and there's wind blowing through his hair and his ears. But I've got to say, it's the just falling into a nap on the rock. That's my Grogorable moment of the episode. Oh, now we have our Mandalicious line of the episodes, Bubba.
Oh, boy, these are tough. Listen, I will go with, it's not so Mandalicious as that it's Mando-honest. Is that Boba Fett with his line, I was aiming for the other one. I like honesty in my Mando, so that's my Mandalicious line of the episode. What are your options? What are you looking at?
We talked about earlier all the ones that I have as the Mandalicious line. I still like when Mando says, this is the seeing stone. Are you seeing anything?
Right. This is the hearing stone. Do you need to go over there?
Mando is always, obviously for good reason, kind of the adult here. So it was awesome to see him both laughing in this episode and also just being like, I kind of don't know what to do. It always feels like he knows what to do. Shoot first, ask questions never.
Never.
But to see him like this, you know, what I talked about last week was like, I said, I don't really get a feeling of his relationship. We never get to see how he feels about Grogu. I mean, his actions speak highly, but since we can't see his face, we can't see like, oh, I have tender feelings. And I felt like we got that this episode and it was necessary.
No, without question. We definitely did. I think, Catfish, we've got an interesting item lined up for this week's Grief's Beef, the Bounty Hunter Guild battle for the ultimate puck. So, Catfish, let's hear it. What's our Grief Beef this week?
All right. Well, as we said earlier, Mando refers to Ahsoka as the nice lady. and it made me think, like, we've seen a lot of rough characters here. It's a rough universe. And nice people don't do so well. So we don't usually see a lot of nice people. So I thought, okay, of the 14 episodes we've seen so far, who is actually the nicest character we've seen so far in The Mandalorian? Could be a nice lady, could be a nice guy.
I can tell you who the evilest person is, very obviously. Frogman. Left his wife alone. Strange planet. But the nicest character, define nice. Well, I think you have to go with Ugnulty. Ugnulty, he was very kind. He helped Mando learn how to ride a blurg. He was doing all these things. Why? He wanted his valley peaceful. Remember back in that very first episode. Then Mando's ship falls apart. He helps barter the deal to get the Razor Crest parts back. Then he pretty much builds the Razor Crest back from scratch himself. If that weren't enough, suddenly Mando's like, okay, I got to return this kid. I got to take out the people who are hunting for him. I'll get Cara Dune, a famous warrior, but I'll also grab this innocent Ugnaught? That's crazy. Ugnaughty did all these things from the goodness of what I assume is a heart in his anatomy. So Ugnaughty, Kuil, I should, after all this, I should give him his honest name, Kuil. He is my nicest character on Mando. That's mine.
I mean, I'm just going to do a little bit of pushback on yours to more support mine.
I have
First
spoken.
of all, when you say that Quill wanted his valley peaceful, so obviously he did what he did for selfish reasons. And also, as we all know, Quill was a quitter. He was a quitter. So not so selfish and a quitter, not the nicest character we've seen so far. Mm-hmm. I have to give mine. This shows you what a rough universe this is.
Okay.
Sometimes we're conditioned by the way we're brought up to act a certain way, and it may not be the nicest and kindest way. But if somehow we're able to kind of overcome our upbringing and become a more thoughtful, nice person, to be selfless, unlike Ugnaughty Quill, and to really sacrifice ourselves for the good of others, that is as nice as you can possibly be.
All right.
So obviously, the nicest person on this entire show is IG-11.
He had to be programmed to be nice from Quill, my character.
No,
Give me a break.
No. He overcame his programming. Even his programming from
he
the
was reprogrammed.
Selfish Quill. It's IG-11. Listen, if you go to certain planets, how many planets have a statue of Quill up as the savior of the town? 0.
Quill cared about the people of Navarro, and so right now, instead of having a statue made out of him, he's fertilizing their food.
IG-11, #hero.
Oh, terrible.
All right, listeners. So we came up with, one of us came up with a great answer, me, and one of us came up with a clearly deficient answer. That's Bubba. So this is a great one. Yeah. I think this is a great one. We've had 14 episodes. Who is the nicest character that we have seen? I'm surprised that neither of us selected the woman that Mando could have settled down and had little Mandalorians with on that planet. She
wanted to tie him down. Ball and chain.
So please let us know so we can report on your feedback next episode. Who is the nicest character on The Mandalorian? And explain why. Bonus points if you pick somebody horrible like Bubba did and try to come up with good reasons why.
I was going to say bonus points if you pick out the nicest person on this podcast.
Another tough one.
Now, you have waited all this time. So let me say that how many people died in this stormtrooper attack?
Oh,
okay.
Right.
So jumping out of the first lander, 6 stormtroopers were shot and went down. This is me saying I saw the stormtrooper go to the ground and we never saw them get back up. So 6 then. 11 after Boba went to town with his staff. When the E-Web got rolled over by the big boulder, that got us to 17. Boba killed some more. We got to 22 when he went for his armor. 30 coming out of the second drop ship. 31, Fennec threw her helmet at the guy and then shot him. After Boba had suited up, we were at 65. As the 2 ships are flying away, we saw 5 people jump onto the ship. I'm going to assume that on both of those landing ships, there was at least 1 pilot. That got us to a total of 72 dead stormtroopers.
Holy cow.
72 dead stormtroopers. This is a violent Disney Plus show. Name another show on Disney Plus that's going to have 72 people die in it.
First of all, excluding the pilots, there is 0 chance that 70 stormtroopers came out of those 2 ships. Like you said, those are clown cars. They don't even. I wonder how many they hold.
Well, now we know. 36 each.
No. All right, it was somewhere waiting. They're like, okay, bring in the second wave. Now the third wave, fourth wave, flank them. The only thing I missed was and maybe I did miss it or we didn't see it. I wanted the jerk who was sending everybody else out to have his own standalone smush as he's yelling something. And I think he was one of the ones who got taken down by the Rock, but I don't remember, like,
No.
it would have been great.
Boba got him individually.
Okay. I still would have liked him to have gotten it after he was like, come on, you fools. It's these guys. There's only a few of them.
I want him to get his own spinoff show.
We need a spin-off show of where the Stormtrooper armor is made, which I assume is a paper recycling plant.
We're going to end this episode the way we end every episode, with our good grief. A positive vibe from either the episode, The Mandalorian as a whole, Star Wars as a whole, the world as a whole, our good grief for the week. Listeners, tell us your good grief. We always need to spread those good vibes in this rough 2020 we're in. Catfish, do you have a good grief for this week?
My only good grief is that by this time next week, when you listen to this podcast, I will have a new 8-week-old puppy. That's the only thing that's going on good in the world. I will have myself a new little puppy.
Catfish, that's tough. That was your good grief last week, too.
Yeah, listen, that's it. That's all that's good in the world. Puppies.
My good grief of the week, listeners, is that it's always fun to find people who love this Star Wars hobby like we do. If you go on Twitter, as we keep mentioning, at PHQ, you'll see that we've been retweeting some things from a Twitter account that is at Star Wars Photoshop, but it's just Star Wars PHTSHP. And they're putting out some great, hilarious, heartwarming Star Wars memes using Photoshop. Their latest batch has been Star Wars characters combined with Muppets. And so they have Chewbacca with Rolf, the dog's head, on top of it. It's great. If you just need a smile in your life, go on Twitter, look for Star Wars Photoshop. Once again, Photoshop in the Twitter handle is PHTSHP. Really fun Star Wars memes that you can grab there. I love them. Hey, for everybody here at Double P Podcast, Double P Media, my name's Bubba. You can find me on Twitter at Fit and Trim. That's FITTENTRIM, at Fit and Trim on Twitter.
And my name is Catfish. You can hit me up at CJGman67 on Twitter. And don't forget to hit up the mothership on Twitter at Double PHQ. And you'll hear us next week on...
Get out there, go. Keep running, keep listening to this podcast. But, sir, there are too many of them. Keep listening. They're killing us all. Get out there, listen to the podcast, download it. Parsec.
Parsec Passion.
Ooh, we were almost at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And here's Nephew Paul.
It was awesome.
Now, is it the best episode, yes or no?
Yes.
Why?
I thought it was tense, and the tension was good in it. I liked how the Dark Troopers were not like ordinary stormtroopers. However, they weren't as powerful as like a Sith Lord. I think it was very good and the best one. But I don't want to sound like one of those reviewers who puts their fandom over the objective truth. And while I liked it, I will still be discussing its flaws in the thing, which it had basically one flaw.
One flaw. Let's hear it. What was it?
The one flaw was this. Oh, dang it, I forgot. Oh, yes. The one flaw, in my opinion, was that we didn't get more origin on Boba Fett after the Sarlacc pit.
Yeah, we still don't know how he escaped. All right, so that was the one flaw. What was the best thing about it?
Oh my god. When they blew up the Mandalorian ship, that was shocking. I did not expect that.
Is Boba Fett a good fighter or is he a wimp?
Boba Fett is an awesome fighter. I was really surprised by how brutal they were making Boba Fett. I thought he was just going to shoot people, but no, he beat the people like the freaking Grim Reaper with his Staff of Doom. I mean, forget lightsaber fighting. Boba Fett can defeat basically 50% of these lightsaber dudes. All they do is swing their sword like a madman. Boba Fett does it precisely and quick.
Baby Yoda, Grogu, at the end, he was choking and throwing people against the walls. Is he going to go to the dark side? What do you think? Talk about it.
I could see that maybe the next season of The Mandalorian, because it's going to have to take place so much in the future, I could theoretically see that Grogu could be like 15 in Yoda years, and he could be like, Mandalorian, you have failed me when I was 50. I don't have to do what you say. I'm a Darksider now. And the Mandalorian could be like, no, it wasn't me. It was Boba Fett. And then Grogu could be like, no, Mandalorian, it was you. And then, like, he could be like the villain or something. I don't know. That's probably not going to happen, but it would be pretty cool if they would make Baby Yoda the villain of the next season. Well, I mean, not Baby Yoda, but like, I don't know, like 15-year-old Grogu. I mean, we don't really know how Yoda's age. So theoretically, Yoda could be like 150 now, and he could be like, I don't know, 15 at 51.
Nephew Paul, you seem to be very obsessed with the age 15. What age do you turn next month?
15, but that doesn't happen.
So that's, you were imitating yourself. You're like, oh, he's going to be real mean to his parents and be real snotty like a 15. What is he for?
John, you're ruining the podcast.
No, okay.
You're going to edit that out, right, John?